You're watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
It's Monday, a very somber Monday in the great Canadian tundra today, but we move on, Pierre. We rebuild, and it means it's time for McGuire Monday. We're going to dissect a little bit more of what we saw yesterday in international hockey, then of course talk about the second half of this Leaf season. Pierre, it hasn't been a great year by Canadian standards in international hockey, with 2 silvers in the Olympics and a bronze in the World Juniors this year. A list of results that would have been unthinkable perhaps a decade ago, but the world has in many ways caught up. Do a lot of changes need to be made in international hockey for Canada right now, or is it maintain the status quo with a few minor tweaks?
Let's start on the women's side. They're going to have to re-image their roster. It's a little old right now. They're going to have to start the flow of younger people coming into their organization. I think that starts at the World Championships this year. Like, I think of a young player like Daniel Serdachny, who was a tremendous player at Colgate University, playing in the PWHL right now. She's just one example. They're going to have to turn over that roster, get some younger people in there, acclimatized into the program, and I think they'll be fine. Canada's trending upwards at the upper levels, which is really good. So you think about Matthew Schaefer, obviously Macklin Celebrini. The next Olympic cycle, when you have still McDavid, still McKinnon, Celebrini, you start looking at the people coming through the system. Canada's not going anywhere anytime soon, but they're going to have to put more of a predominance on those younger players. But in particular, I think they really got to start worrying about where they are with the goaltending in terms of experience. They've got a lot of younger ones coming. They just now need to get them some experience.
Yeah, and that's certainly by no means a knock on the way Binnington played, because he was good.
No.
There was obviously concerns about goaltending, but if there was a problem for Team Canada, and I'm not sure there was a major glaring one, it certainly was not the goaltending.
No, my goodness gracious! I thought if you go to the Czechia game, if they don't have Jordan Binnington, they don't get to the next round against Finland in the semifinal. And against the Finns, they're down 2-0. And if it's not for some timely goaltending from Binnington, they're probably down 3-0, and they're not coming back if they're down 3-0. So, no, Binnington's not the problem when it comes to this evaluation of this Team Canada that was at the Olympics. The Sidney Crosby injury, whether people want to admit it or not, I don't hear enough people talking about it, that created mayhem for the roster. It took what was a real organizational strength, depth down the middle, McKinnon, McDavid, Crosby, 1, 2, 3. It took that away, number one. It forced them to play that super line all the time. Easier matchup for the Americans. They know they only have to worry about one line. And quite frankly, it took Marner and Stone kind of out of it because Crosby was the guy that was driving the line. And then you lose him and everybody's shuffling all over. That injury was massive for Canada. It was massive.
And because of the depth down center ice for the American team, it created a big problem in the final game. Whereas they might not have had the pure goal-scoring talent at center, they certainly had the depth of the center position required to go up against a team like Canada.
So you're so spot on. And Kyle, I just want for everybody to understand this. You'd be hard-pressed to think that Dylan Larkin would be the engine that would drive USA, with Jack Eichel being ahead of him, Austin Matthews being ahead of him. But it was Dylan Larkin and Jack Hughes in particular with Tage Thompson, that line that really was the engine the last 3 games that drove the Americans. And that's what we're talking about now. If Crosby's still playing, I think Marner and Stone make more of an impact, and maybe they cancel out that line. Because if you're going to ask me, Dylan Larkin, Sidney Crosby, I'm still taking Sid, even though I'm friends with Dylan and I think the world of him as a player. The truth is that Sidney Crosby still has mucho game left. Like, he's still got a lot of game left. And not having him, I think, hurt, especially in face-off situations. Sid's face-off play is really good.
Yeah. And you haven't even touched upon the emotional character he brings to the locker room. But at some point, we're crying over spilt milk here, because they still have to field the team, and it's still any given Sunday, the U.S. proved that any team can win at this level of hockey. How did you feel about Connor McDavid taking home MVP in a losing effort, when I think a fair argument could be made that award could have also easily gone to Connor Hellebuck?
I think you're right. I do.
And that's certainly not a knock on McDavid. He is hockey Jesus. Like, we know all of this stuff about him, but in a losing effort, let's be real honest about where the Americans would have ended up in this tournament without absolutely outstanding, no other word to describe it, goaltending by Hellebuck.
I don't think if they don't have Connor Hellebuck, and let's just say it's Jeremy Swayman playing, That gold medal game's not tight. It's never getting overtime. No. Canada wins. Hellebuck made a huge difference. It doesn't, you know what? When it's all said and done, Connor's going to say, "Yeah, I took this home," but that's not what matters to him. He wanted
not a chance.
Medal. And all those guys would tell you the same thing. I was there when Jonathan Toews was a forward of the tournament in Vancouver in 2010, and you know what? He played on an amazingly important line with Rick Nash and Mike Richards. He didn't care about that. He wanted the gold medal. And when Crosby scored, the relief around that Canadian bench, and I was a foot and a half away from it, it was palpable, the relief that was there. So I don't think any of the players pay attention to those individual awards that are handed out at the Olympics. They want the gold medal.
Right. And again, none of that was a knock on Connor McDavid, obviously. No. There's no knocking him. No. But it did seem like that award could have easily gone the other way. Of little consequence, there's no, as you say, Pierre, he doesn't care about that award. It's not going to be something he'll reflect on in his career. The man's after the gold, and they fell short this time. We have to discuss something else because we've both been very vocal throughout this entire tournament at what an absolute masterful PR campaign for NHL hockey this whole tournament was, and of course for women's hockey on the whole with the PWHL coming up in popularity. But there are concerns, I'm sure, from an ownership side of things. We saw two very serious, or one at least, certainly serious injury to Kevin Fiala, and of course an injury to Sidney Crosby, which we simply do not have a timeline on for his return or how this will affect him moving forward. There's no way this doesn't get discussed when they're discussing in the future what to do about NHL players in the Olympics. How do they weigh the pros and cons of what we just saw?
It's interesting. It's a fair question. So here's what I'd say is I can tell you right now, Bill Daly broke the news on my show. They're committed to a 2028 World Cup of Hockey, and they're going to have 8 teams from around the world, including obviously Canada and the United States, that are going to play in this World Cup of Hockey. So they see that as an important part of growing their footprint worldwide, these international events. The Olympics are the biggest. You can say, yes, it's the World Cup of Hockey. The World Cup of Hockey is never going to be bigger than the Olympics. The Stanley Cup's still the biggest thing in our game, but the gold medal for the Olympics is huge. I don't think they'll ever pull out of the Olympics again. I really don't. I think they'll continue to go. And you talked about those 2 key injuries. Obviously, Fiala's is huge. He's out for the rest of the year. We still don't know where Sid is. I think you're going to see more guys that will be reported as injured when we come back to play starting Wednesday. The physicality, especially from the quarterfinal all the way to the end of the semifinal, was huge for all the teams that participated. And then you look at Canada and the U.S. in that gold medal game. There was some significant hitting that went on in that game. So yeah, I'll take you to the first sequence of the game. Look at Brady Tkachuk and Matthew Tkachuk, the Malachi crunch on Cale Makar. And then you go look at the hit that Tom Wilson put on Dylan Larkin to start the game behind the American net. I mean, I know he got right back up. Those leave a mark. Like, those hurt. And so I think you're going to see more guys than not be injured when we come back to start the season on Wednesday.
And I also think, for the record, if this was put to a vote amongst the players, 104% of them would vote to go and play for their nations in the Olympics and risk whatever injury, whatever long-term potential damage to their career an injury could do to represent their nation on those ice surfaces.
Kyle, I just want to build off that because it's such a really good salient point, and I really mean this. I talked to Bill Daly for a long time about 2 weeks ago. And I asked him straight up, I said, you guys have labor harmony, and I've been in the league 37 years. This is probably the most harmonious relationship you've ever had with the NHLPA. And I asked him, did the Olympics play part of that? And he goes, absolutely. Those players want to go to the Olympics. They use the Olympics as a carrot to get labor harmony for the ownership groups and for the Players Association. And now everybody's happy. They're all walking in lockstep. And it's the first time I've seen that, I'm telling you, in 37 years in the league, where there's this kind of trust between the PA and the NHL. It's amazing, and I think the Olympics played a big part in that.
Okay, and last point on the Olympics here, Pierre. I have to admit, as a Canadian, my heart was broken when those men fell short yesterday. Yeah. I think I speak for tens of millions of people in that, on the flip side of that, the theater of the hockey we watched yesterday, it was outstanding. We were discussing this via text message during the game yesterday. And now, taking a step out of my own personal feelings, I have to wonder if perhaps the U.S. winning their first gold in 46 years is the best possible outcome for the game of hockey, not the game of Canadian hockey, but for the game of hockey in the NHL, because people I know for a fact that are American friends of mine, I do a lot of work down in the States, they are messaging me about hockey. They are calling me derogatory names in the spirit of a competition, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And they're paying attention to a game they've probably never spent more than 5 minutes considering in their life. And the American market in some sections has always been a tough nut for the NHL to crack. With this, now the Canada-US rivalry will burn hot for 4 years. And is this the best possible outcome for the NHL?
It is on the men's side and also on the women's side. We also saw an overtime game in the gold medal game between Canada and the United States, and it was a great hockey game. Everybody's talking about that. The community that I live in here in the South, I'm surrounded by a lot of former SEC football players, a lot of former NFL players. They all talk and congregate about big sporting events, and hockey's a hot burner issue right now. It really is, which is a good thing, not a bad thing. And it's not just the men, it's the women too. But no, you're right. This thing's going to burn hot for 4 years till they play again. And, may the best team win. The one thing I'll say that I don't want to say disappointed because it's not fair because there was so much to love. That was too many men on the ice for the Americans. And for that not to be called at that time of the game, that was not the standard that had been created earlier in the game. I know Canada had a 5-on-3 power play. I understand that, and the Americans killed it off, but that could have changed the complexion of that game if they would have called it too many men on the ice penalty when the Americans definitely had too many men on the ice.
Yeah, and I think the nature of it too, it wasn't inconsequential because the puck was played and the puck was right in that area. It's not like just a guy that got a little jumpy getting on the ice early for a shift change. It was quite black and white what happened. Not as an excuse, but you hate to see that in such a tightly contested game. The game ends up 5-1. We're not discussing it. And in the Canadian locker room, there's certainly not John Cooper's certainly not blaming that for the team's loss. It'll be pointed to. We pointing to it now. We pointed to it yesterday, but at the end of the day, we had that gold medal stolen by a very mean goalie. That's what I'm describing him as. I called him a very mean goalie to my nephew, and that's just how that has to be.
Interesting guy. I know Winnipeg's first game is in Vancouver,
right?
So I wonder.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting because, you got Vancouver, the site of the last victory of the NHLers. You've got two Canadian cities going, but you have the goalie that, he was undeniably brilliant in that game. Yeah. I hope from his point of view, if he gets the loud chorus of boos, I do hope he understands it's purely respect for what he did for that American team because it was a special performance. It was.
And I don't think when they come back to Winnipeg to play their first game, I don't think he'll be booed.
How could they? It's probably the biggest sigh of relief they've ever. Wait, this guy can win the big game. It's not just him.
I don't think he'll be booed in some Canadian markets. I think he'll actually be saluted. But you're right. I mean, I think about 2010 like it was yesterday, even though it was 16 years ago, and I'll never forget the noise after Sid scored. I'll never forget that as long as I live. It was an unbelievable reaction, really.
Well, hold on to it, Pierre, because you got 4 years to wait to see if it can be recreated. And that'll be the first time Sid, highly unlikely he'll be a part of that team 4 years from now. And it'll be a new crop of guys in with some of the guys we just saw, and it'll be very interesting.
Can I just throw something by you? Because I agree with everything you just said. Remember how Gretzky played in 98 and then took over the reins in 02? Mm-hmm. I'd love to see Sid take over the reins.
Or at least get involved on the management level.
Yeah, I'd like to see Sid involved in that. He would be the best reference point. He's played in 3 Olympics. He's played in the World Cup of Hockey. He's played in 2 World Juniors. I mean, world champions.
He's the best international hockey resume that's ever existed.
Best ever resume for a Canadian internationally. Yeah. Youngest player to ever score a goal at the World Junior. I'd love to see, and I'm not Sid's agent. Pat Brisson is. Am I friends with Sid? Yeah, I am. I've never talked to him about it. I'm going to see him in Pittsburgh at the end of March, and I'm going to say you should be involved with the management of the next Team Canada. Because I don't think he's going to play. I don't see that in the cards. But I do think he should be part of the management. Gretzky did a fantastic job in 02, Kyle. I can tell you. I was there. He was masterful. He was really good with that 02 team. Really good.
Sometimes when you have these like generational level superstar hockey players, the best place for them eventually becomes the press box, where they can take an even bigger 10,000 foot view of the game and help shape the narrative of Canadian hockey moving forward. If Sidney Crosby isn't a part of that, then that's a failure on all levels of our system. Let's move on, Pierre. Let's move on, Pierre, to talk a little bit about the Toronto Maple Leafs as they move into, well, it's certainly not the second half. There's 25 games to play. They're 6 points out of the last wild card spot right now. The two most important pieces of their lineup, of course, being Austin Matthews and Willie Nylander, are coming back from the Olympics. Obviously not a successful one for Nylander, but Austin Matthews, what can you say? He's wearing a gold medal around his neck, and you have to feel as though that shakes a lot of the narrative around this guy.
It does. I agree. A lot of people said, how could you name him captain? He doesn't even know how to win. Well, he just did win. It's a lot like Connor Hellebuck. Well, he just did win, so you're going to have to retract your statement. I think it's going to be positive for him. I think Willie Nylander's experience over there is going to be very positive too.
Agreed.
They were a shot away from beating a very good team from the United States. So all in all, I think for the Leafs, and OEL played well when he had an opportunity to play, Oliver Ekman-Larsson. So I think for the Leafs, more positive than negative. Here's the thing. I think 5 teams from the Atlantic are going to be in the playoffs, the top 3 teams and then the 2 wild cards. Just like last year, we had 5 teams from the Atlantic. I think you're going to have 5 again. The Leafs and Ottawa are going to be in this amazingly big fight to try to get one of those 2 spots. There's no looking. I know they start in obviously Tampa, then they go over to Florida, and that's a tough back-to-back. But I think Tampa's going to be nursing some wounds. They got a lot of tired guys, and they got a lot of hurt guys. And then you look at Florida, I think that they understand the reality of the thing is they're not going to make it this year. They'll probably start moving some bodies, and I got to think some guys are going to sit down after the Olympics. So they win those 2 games. I think Toronto is going to make the playoffs. I really do. But these next 2 games, I'm not trying to overhype them. They're important. They're really important.
They're very important. I just would like to send a message to all of the audience in Leafland. If Austin Matthews doesn't have his best stuff on Wednesday night, cut the guy some slack. He's probably still drunk right now, as he should be, and he's going to be very tired between all the celebration and give him till at least Thursday. Please don't start that stuff right away with him.
I love that you said that, Kyle.
Well,
no, but it's true. It's true.
And it's fair.
I think important. One of the nicest things about winning on the road is the plane ride back to your home rink. I've done it twice. We did it in 91, did it in 92, one in Minnesota, one in Chicago. And what I can tell you is it's just you and your teammates. There's no media. There's no outside noise. It's just you guys, everybody, the trainers, the coaches, the management, and the players. It's the most amazing plane ride you'll ever experience. I'm telling you.
And I imagine the flip side of that is the plane ride that the Canadians spent probably near to silence reflecting on that. And on that note, Pierre, I want to end with one thought here, because I don't know if you agree with me on this, but I would hate to be someone that has to play against Nathan MacKinnon in the last 25 games of this season, because he is going to be coming out surly and firing on all cylinders after the experience he just had at the Olympics.
And so will Cale Makar, and so will Devon Taves. Colorado's for real. Like, they're going to be a big problem in the playoffs. So I definitely agree. I think Connor McDavid is going to be much the same. I think Celebrini in San Jose might be so upset that he helps propel that team into a playoff position, which when the season started, nobody had San Jose in the playoffs. So I think you're spot on with those Canadian players that had that bitter taste of defeat. I really do. I think it's a great point.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit easier on the younger guys because they still have 15 years of hockey ahead of them. But these old, and not suggesting that either McDavid or McKinnon are older, but they've both been so far on so many stages of hockey now, they know they don't have many more opportunities left to win a gold or to capture a Stanley Cup. And the Stanley Cup obviously being, you play on a Canadian hockey team, you're probably going to make it to the Final Four of the tournament, right? Yeah. So your chances are very good every time you go, but that's every 4 years. To make it to a Stanley Cup final, Connor McDavid's got to figure that window's shutting in Edmonton, and McKinnon has to realize the time for the Avalanche to strike right now.
Totally agree. Couldn't agree more. Spot
okay,
on.
Pierre. Well, there's not too much else to say on the NHL front until the games start again on Wednesday. It's going to be an incredible run towards the playoffs for these teams. I would encourage people to not write off this Toronto Maple Leafs team because they're now well rested and they've had experience. Several of their key players experience the highest level of hockey over these last couple of weeks, and they probably will take a lot away from that physically, emotionally, and of course mentally that they can translate to the NHL ice surface.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to salute some people. I want to thank producer Tim for all the work he put in during the Olympics. He was phenomenal. Alex Pastor was phenomenal during the Olympics. You and EJ and Dan were off the charts. Great teammates. I enjoyed doing this so much. And thanks to everybody that watched. It was a tremendous Olympics. Everybody's got to get excited for what's going to be the stretch run for the Leafs here. I'm so pumped up. To your point, I think the Leafs are going to go out and create a lot of havoc here as we go down the stretch in a positive way, not a negative way.
Couldn't agree with you more, team. Thank you to the entire team at Toronto Sports Rush for putting in the extra hours, getting the coverage done with us, following along, and even to the American ones, I guess you guys were pretty good too. We can say you guys did a good job as well. Listen, I will get over this eventually. I'm just happy to report that the game of hockey is in good hands on both sides of the border and beyond, and we have a lot to look forward to closing out this season. Hoping the Leafs can squeeze their way into the playoffs down here, show a little heart down the stretch, and we will be back for lots of coverage. We'll have post games, we'll have McGuire Monday, and we'll of course have the morning show to discuss everything we see over these last 25 games and hopefully more. Pierre, thank you very much for joining us once again.
Thank you, my friend. See you, Kyle.
Thanks for watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.